Hey there, welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I have Kati Morton with me. Kati, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
And I'm excited for what we're going to talk about. Before we do that, please tell the good people something about the work you do and who you are.
Yes, so I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I specialize in the treatment of eating disorders and self-injury work. That's what my private practice was and what all my training was early on. I have been educating and creating mental health content online since 2011, so it's been a few years. And my goal is really just to educate and empower people. I feel like the more we know, the better we can all be, and that helps everybody.
Yeah. And I asked this question of you before we hit record, which I asked many of my guests. What do people most need to know that they don't know? And you had an amazing answer that I'm very excited to go into. So go ahead and tell us, what was the answer to that question?
Yes, I believe everyone needs to know that clear and direct communication saves lives and saves relationships. So often we're afraid to speak up, to say what we mean, or to ask for what we need from those we're in relationships with. And I don't know where I heard this quote, but it's like been rolling around in my brain. And it's essentially that you think that conversation is difficult. How difficult do you think it's going to be when you haven't said that and the relationship is different as a result? And I think that's something we have to remember, that difficult relationships are important. It is important for people to know who we really are and what we really need so that they can meet us there. So they can, like, we don't just have assumptions, we have expectations that are met, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have someone who can do what we need and we can do that for other people. And I, as a recovering people pleaser, have learned the hard way how important this is, because if we don't speak up, we just build resentment. And that can get really icky, right? And that can make our relationships even more difficult. And, this isn't just romantic. This could be like your spouse or your partner, but it's also friendships. We have to be able to tell each other what we want, what hurt our feelings, so that people can give them an opportunity to change behavior or to apologize. A lot of times people just don't realize we're very like self-centric. I don't want to say we're like self-centered, but we're very self-centric where we think everybody's thinking about us or everybody's doing this, and people aren't, right? A lot of times people have their own things going on. And so direct and clear communication can save relationships.
I love it so much. As you were talking, I want to maybe carve out a different space here, because it is my belief that this is not what we're talking about, which is parents to children, to young children in particular, expressing our needs to our young children is not what we're talking about here.
No,
Okay.
that is not our children's responsibility.
Yeah.
That is our responsibility. However, I will carve a different piece out for children where clear and direct communication about what's expected of them and how you feel. It's okay to say, like, hey, mom is really stressed out, or I'm having a down day. It's nothing to do with you. It's normal. We can normalize emotional behavior, but we do not need to parentify the child. We do not need to put any kind of burden on the child for our emotional needs. No.
And that is a really hard thing. So I wanted to call it out. I want to pin it for anybody who needs that conversation. We'll for sure circle back to that, because that's kind of not the direction we're headed here. What we're talking about is very much adult to adults. And to your point, being clear about ourselves can also then translate to kids, right? If it is completely legit. In fact, I'll never forget this in one of my Raising Orchid Kids classes, we talked about the zones of regulation.
Mm.
So red zone, being like, I'm just really upset right now. And the mom turned around to her teenage child and was like, you know what? I'm just really in the red zone right now. So you got to know that. And that direct need-based communication, again, with a teenager. So this is a little bit, right, in this caveat
Very different.
situation, different.
Yes.
Um, Teen was like, respect, mom. Thanks for letting me know. So with that in mind, let's situate this conversation adult to adult. Tell me more about, like, what do you mean by clear communication? And I think you alluded to it, but like, I'm not going to be dumping my feelings all over people.
No. we're not trauma dumping, we're not venting, unless that's what we're wanting, and we can ask if they have time and space for that. There is always opportunity, there's ample opportunity. I do that to my girlfriends all the time. Like, do you have space? I just need to vent. And they're like, give it to me. Yes, I've got it. Okay, so we can ask for that approval, or that, being aware that not every, like, if somebody's already read, we don't want to dump on them, right? This is more around the difficulties in life and relationships, where somebody might say something that hurts your feelings. And it's important that we speak up and say, hey, when you said this, I took it really hard. And it's been really difficult for me. We keep it about ourselves. We use our I statements. We're not finger pointing, even if we want to. That's going to make them defensive, and that's going to kind of like undo all this hard work we're doing. But we're going to lean into them, and we're going to let them know. That's a big piece of it. The other could be, hey, like if it's a partner or even a friend, if we need to ask somebody for something, we do it clearly. Like, I could use an easy example with my husband at home. It would be really helpful if you could unload the dishwasher while I move the laundry around and fold the towels. Very simple, very direct, very clear. And I know it sounds easy, but so many of us just want them to ask and read our minds. And I think the most dangerous thing we can do in relationships is expect people to read our minds. And so that's what I really mean by direct communication. That gives others in our life an opportunity to show us that they can show up for us.
I had an experience when my children were quite small. My son was a baby, where I was venting to my therapist about the fact that my husband never packed the lunch bag. And, it needed to have this many ounces of milk and this blah, blah, and this with the ice pack and the whole thing. And my therapist looked at me and she was like, does he know about this?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's a
and
great question.
right. Like, how would he have this information? And I was like, well, I do it every day. And she's like, uh-huh. So it's this very, like, sometimes we don't, I mean, they're called blind spots for a reason. I wrote down the routine on a piece of paper and stuck it on the fridge, and we started alternating days. Changed my whole life, in this very small way. But even that kind of, not expecting our partners in particular, I feel like we do that to them all the time, family members, to read our minds. It's not fair.
Well, no, because you're not giving them a real opportunity to do anything, right? Like, I've had the same situation with my husband too, where it's like, why am I always the one that does this? And my therapist, love therapists. I mean, I am one, but I see one.
Yep.
And she had said, well, did you ask him, or did you tell him,
Mm-hmm.
that you needed this help? Of
Mm-hmm.
course not. He should know. No, I think about it, and I assume he thinks about it too, but we are two different people with two different brains, and he has his own group of things he's thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's talk about, we've stated our needs.
Mhm.
The other person has presumably heard us. In other words, they can hear the words we're saying, and they still don't do the thing. Tell me about that part of it, because as we know, and are constantly reminded by other people's behavior, we do not control their behavior.
Unfortunately, no, we can't control other people. In relationships, this part is tricky, and especially for those like myself who are very conflict averse,
Mm,
this can be a triggering situation.
mm,
Now, I want to encourage everybody to again lead with compassion. Sometimes because someone heard our words doesn't mean they were actually listening.
mm,
And so I believe in second chances. I believe in communicating again.
mm,
And if this depends on the relationship, okay? So if this is a friendship and we've started asking and not receiving, and we see a pattern, okay? Because a one-time thing could mean all sorts of stuff. I can't tell you the amount of times I've tried to tell my husband something during a hockey game. That's not helpful. So it could be on us to pick a good time to communicate when we know that they're not distracted and we know that they're able to hear us, and we're just in conversation, just the two of us already. That could be part of it. We give them another chance, and we might need to up the stakes. So there is this DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy tool, that I love, called Dear Man. And what it essentially does is it allows us as the asker to slow down our process and write out the DEA. Think of it's an acronym, so we're going to answer some questions here. I'll tell you what it stands for. We have to consider what we're really asking for so we make sure it's clear, because sometimes, now not all the time, but sometimes we think, well, I've told them exactly what I needed. And maybe in that moment, my husband was like, oh, yeah, yeah, I can unload the dishwasher. He did that and he never did it again. And I'm like, but I told you I needed. And he's like, but I did it that one time, right? No, I meant recurring. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. Okay. Again, not pointing fingers, just being honest about how clear and direct was my communication. And Dear Man kind of helps with that. So the D stands for describe. It's like describe the situation. This is no emotions. What's happening? And what is it that you're wanting? So be very clear. We're just describing it like you're talking to, I don't know, somebody else. Then E is express. That's where your emotions can come in. Like, I feel frustrated. I feel taken advantage of. I feel ignored. Insert things there. Then we go to A, which is assert. That's when we ask for the thing. I need you to help me pack lunch boxes every morning. I need to do every other day with you, or whatever the ask is. R is reinforce. So, like, what's in it for them, right? It makes me happier. I would feel more connected to you. I wouldn't be so this way. Or you don't like that the floor is sticky either if we're each mopping it. I know we're doing a lot of home examples. Those are just easy for me, you know, but we both like that. We both like clean laundry, whatever the thing. It benefits you, it benefits me. That's the reinforce. Then we get into the man part, which is like mindfulness. That's like, what's going on? How am I feeling? That was what I was saying about, like, are they watching a hockey game and you're trying to talk to them? Like, be mindful of the situation. Pick a good time. You know, we want to make sure that we're doing it properly and we're making sure this is a real conversation where they can hear it. Then we want to appear confident. That's the A, and that's like make eye contact. Don't mumble, be clear. And I know these are very simple things, but sometimes we don't think about it and we can get really angry. Remember, confidence isn't angry. Confidence is assured. Confidence is clear. Confidence is calm. So we have to appear confident. Even if you don't feel it, we appear it.
I love
And
this.
then the N is negotiate.
Mm.
So, like, if they're like, I can't do it all the time, I also always cook dinner and you don't do that, right? Then they might have their own gripe. And so we have to be, that's like the negotiation. Like, okay, well, if you help me half time, I'll help you half time. Then neither of us feels like we're doing something on our own.
So I love this Dear Man. First of all, it's hilarious to me, but and super useful. What about? I have a couple of whatabouts.
Yes.
There are people, sometimes I am one of them, who cannot who cannot receive, who cannot ask for help. What do you have to say about that? In other words, it's really hard for me because he might do it wrong. He's done it wrong before. And I really want him to do it. And I'm really mad that he doesn't do it, but I can't relinquish control long enough to ask somebody else to do it wrong.
I feel
And
like
this could
every,
be, right, like everybody, right? This could be the laundry, this could be the dishes, this could be getting the baby dressed, you know? Like, I don't like that he puts a non-matching outfit on my child.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I think you speak for every woman when you say that. And I've mentioned this in the past to my audience, and I'll say it again here. One of the best pieces of advice my mother gave me, I got this book from all the women in my family, which was their best advice for marriage.
Oh.
And my mom's was always accept their help, even if it's not done the right way, because there's going to come a day when you need that help and you want them to still offer. And so I have, as the therapist to me, I'm like, I have to push back gently and say, is it the end of the world if your child is mismatched? Is it the end of the world if the towels are folded a little bit different and we notice they don't sit quite right because they have folded? Why would you do that? We don't know, but you did. Does it matter that they loaded the dishwasher like they were having a seizure? It doesn't matter, right? And so we have to be honest with ourselves, because then that's on us. Because if we're burnt out, if we're irritable, if we feel taken advantage of because no one's helping us, but in our, I call it like internal research, but in our self-discovery, right? We're thinking about this. I'm being curious, not judgmental about why this has happened. Why do I feel burnt out? Why do I feel taken advantage of? If in that self-discovery period, I realize, hey, I don't ask for help and I don't let them help me even when they offer, then who do I truly have to blame for how I feel? And I know, again, this isn't finger pointing, but we all have to sometimes take an honest look at ourselves. I do this to myself all the time. Like, why are you tying yourself up and then complaining about the bondage being so tight? What are you doing? And I think that's the honest answer
Yeah.
is we have to let go of some things and let them help. Even if I'll give full, I do not, this is fine if after the fact you want to go and refold it later. But you know what we say? Thank you, honey, for helping. Thank you for doing that thing that I needed. Thank you. We reinforce
Yeah.
because we want them to do it again.
It's so funny as you're talking. I know that we're not actually talking about parents and children, but this is the same process that we use with children who we want to whom we want to teach skills, right? We allow them to do it incorrectly at their level, and then we shape from there. And a lot of times it means we're spending double time in the interest of teaching somebody who doesn't know how to do something to eventually know how to do something. So I mean, all of all of behavior is human behavior. So.
Yes, and that builds confidence in kids too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important for them to like try and fail and learn and then get good at something. Like, look, mommy, I can crack eggs without getting any shell in.
Mm-hmm.
That means there were a lot of days where there was a lot of shell. And
Mm-hmm.
potentially we got scrambled eggs. We didn't really want them, but that's fine, right? We have
Yeah.
to let them learn. And yes, and just let it happen.
Yeah. And some of this, as you're talking, is substituting short-term pain for long-term gain. Because to your point about refolding the towels, for example, because it may very well be that your nervous system really can't tolerate them leaning like that in the closet. It's very annoying to you. You're going to refold them. Is that, extra wasted time in the moment? Yes. And long term, no. To your point, you're not going to be burned out instead of being burned out. And you will have cultivated a sense of participation in your household that will go a long way. But talk a little bit about and it's kind of the antithesis of what you're saying about clear communication. Talk about like passive aggressive kind of comments about how the thing wasn't done. You did the thing, but not properly, and I have notes.
Yes. That so passive everybody does passive aggressive behavior. I'm not judging you. You don't judge me. We all do it. We silent treatment. We make comments about like, well, I pulled one towel out and they all fell over. Wouldn't have happened if you didn't fold it this way, right? We can say things or like, wow, so glad you helped. But what's not said is bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've all done things like that. And my encouragement is in the same way, if this helps at all, okay, in the same way that you talk to your child about things like this, we want to talk to our partners in life, whether that's friends, spouse, whoever it is. We want to encourage them to do it again because just let's paint a picture. Let's say I just had surgery on my foot and I can't do stuff around the house. Do I want my partner to be sitting on the couch while laundry piles up and dinners don't get made and we order in? You know what I mean? And dishes? No. Or do I want a partner that's empowered to feel like I can do this and it's not going to upset her and I'm helping? What do we want? Because we're kind of cultivating that. And so we want our partner to do the thing, do it the way they think they should do it, because they're doing the best they can too. Is our way the right way? It can feel like it is. But can you really say there's a right way or a wrong way for a lot of things? No, it's just the way we prefer. It's a preferred way. And so this is where I believe if we're talking about romantic partnership, this is where friends come in.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we vent our frustrations to our friends and we say, I love my husband or I love my wife very much. However, sometimes I swear to God, if he folds those towels that way one more time, I'm just going to scream. But I want him to help. So I don't say anything and I say, thank you very much. We use that again. Do you have room for me to vent? You do? Great. I have a lot of things that I need to talk about.
And this is where, honestly, we have this kind of false narrative in this culture about romantic partners in particular, that they're supposed to be everything. They're supposed to be our best friend and our sounding board when we have trouble, and they're supposed to sleep with us in the bed at night and help us parent our children and go to work and bring home the bacon and cook the dinner once in a while and clean up the house and like do all the things. And no one person could possibly do that.
No, we can't ask for everything from one person. We can't ask for everything, right? We can ask for certain things, and hopefully we've taken our time in picking a partner because they are the person we're going to spend the most time with. But they can't be our emotional support, our financial support, our, like parent support, everything. They can't do everything. And it's really important for us to cultivate other relationships, whether it's like through parenting groups, you have other moms or dads you connect with, that's wonderful, or just friends that you have on your own. There's nothing more valuable in our life than making sure that we still set aside time for friendships.
Yeah.
So often especially if you have young kids, you can feel like you're in it. As a child-free person, I want you to know that you can always ask your child-free friends to pick up food and come over. We love to do it. We don't have children grabbing on us all day. Let them grab on us for a couple of hours. It doesn't bother us. And I feel like we have to, I was just thinking about this the other day that like in, we have this whole culture right now, I feel like online where people are like, but you're asking too much. Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable or I don't want to be put out in some way. This is so much extra effort. Discomfort comes along with every relationship. Going out of your way and doing something that maybe is a little bit hard or is inconvenient, that's part of love. That's part of relationship building. And we have to get away from this like, well, it's inconvenient for me. I don't want to. Or I'm already home and I'm in my pajamas. I'm not leaving. I know that we don't always, and I'm not saying you always have to, but please, everybody, I urge you, cultivate friendships. Do not let them lag just because life gets busy, because we all need that. We need that person to vent to about the laundry being folded in a crazy manner. We also need that person to talk to when we don't feel like we know who we are anymore and our kids are growing and like I'm changing and what is going on. We're going to need that. Our partner, like to your point, our husband cannot be everything. They can't be everything for us.
Yeah. It's interesting because particularly if you're raising a complicated kid, which are the kids that we mostly talk about on this podcast, you number one really want to have friends who are going through something similar, who are not your spouse, because your spouse is also in it with you. And you said something really interesting at the top and just now about discomfort. And so discomfort now, discomfort later, levels of discomfort. Talk about discomfort in conversation, in relationship. Where does it sit? Where should it sit?
Discomfort's really important. I'm actually creating a whole video on this because I think it's a very powerful tool. Unfortunately, the way that we talk about discomfort is like it should be avoided. We should be comfortable all the time. We should be able to just do what we want when we want. I'm sorry, but that means you don't grow. That means things are stagnant and things die. And I'm not trying to be harsh, it's just the truth. Because what discomfort is a challenge. Discomfort means I haven't done this before, or this is pushing me a little bit out of my comfort zone, or this is a little inconvenient. And all in all, discomfort allows us to develop new skills, to grow into the person that we're meant to be. I mean, if we all are just honest, here today in this very moment, am I as happy as I want to ever be in my whole entire life? That sounds pretty tough.
That is a big question. That is a really big question. I wanted to keep talking, but that really hit me because I actually think, and I don't think you and I are two of these people, but I do think that there are people who would rather not ask that question because of the discomfort that it would bring. And let's just stay here in, people call it the comfort zone. I choose to call it the zone of familiarity, right? Because it's not actually that comfortable, right? But let's stay here because we know what's here and we don't know what's on the other side of a difficult conversation. And that's real. And I'm not, again, to your point about no judgment, but brains are wired, number one, for that, to keep us safe. And number two, wow, is this as happy as I ever want to be? That is such an interesting question.
And even if we're happy now, like, is this the limit? You want to just cap it? That's it? right? And we don't think about it that way, but that's what we're doing.
Mm.
And it's like I hear from patients of mine and even viewers over the years, like they'll stay in a marriage that they're really unhappy in because of the fear of having that difficult conversation or admitting that they're not happy. And I know these are like very big, deep, tough questions and tough concepts, but in general, if we want better for ourselves and for our children, we need to constantly challenge ourselves. We are like that old saying, like what's fired wires, or
Mm.
what's what
Yeah.
fire wires, and it's essentially like what you're saying, that like what we keep doing over and over gets easier and easier and feels more and more comfortable. But those are the same. We're like walking the same path every day,
Yeah.
doing the same. I mean, a lot of us can feel like it's wash, rinse, repeat, right? Every day is the same. And I really want to challenge all of us, myself included, to be more uncomfortable. Not, and notice I didn't say, I want you to do something you don't want to do. I
Yeah.
want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to challenge yourself because we can do a lot of things. We are capable of having difficult conversations, of being honest, of making change, of doing something we've never done before with a group of people we haven't met. It's uncomfortable, but we're all capable. And yeah, we really have to ask ourselves, is this it?
Yeah.
Or am I willing to grow?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The image of doing something new, something that we want to do that's new versus something that feels hard that we're not sure we want to do. Um, that was just hitting me a little bit there in terms of those conversations. I also think a conversation is just that. Like, just because we have a conversation about something doesn't actually mean, and this is for better or for worse, that anything has to change. And so that's another, I think, brain workaround a little bit is like brains think if something gets mentioned, like the whole thing is going to come crashing down around us. That's not true. Talking and acting are two different steps of this process. Thinking about something, talking about something, and acting on something are three different steps of the same process. And so it's interesting to kind of watch the brain go like, oh, no, no, we can't have that conversation. It's very dangerous because of what might happen. And again, I do think, sometimes we have hard conversations and a can of worms gets opened that we can't close. And that's hard. The question is, to your point, like, are we going to stay married for 35 years and then have that conversation?
Because when is it? It's back to like that quote I'd heard online. I can't attribute it to anybody because I don't know who it was,
Yeah.
but they said like, you think that the conversation's uncomfortable now. What about it in 10 years? Or, like you think of how much built resentment or built behavioral like patterns we're stuck in.
Yeah.
And no one out there wants to wake up at like 65 and be like, what is this life, right? I don't even like this. What am I doing? And in order to prevent that, we have to have those difficult conversations. We have to be on. And again, difficult conversations does not mean I'm being aggressive. It doesn't mean I'm blaming someone else. This just means, again, back to like what we started with, that these clear communications are happening. And again, I don't like conflict either, but I will tell you something my therapist told me that has been so helpful for me, and I'm sure for my husband, even if I don't know if he's fully aware that this changed. But whenever I want to pull back and like silent treatment him, passive aggressive, like he should read my mind, he should know. I want him to come to me and ask what's wrong. That's part of my toxic behavior. I so do that all the time. And she was like, how about instead you lean in and you tell him what hurt your feelings? And I was like, absolutely not. That feels scary. What if he says it's not a big deal? What if I'm invalidated? And she's like, can you be okay with that? Let's think about that. Will you survive if he didn't think that was a big deal? And the truth is, I would. It'd be uncomfortable and it'd probably make me feel more alone. But either way, I'm on my own trying to, right? It's like six in one, half a dozen in the other. So instead, I've been practicing. When I'm upset, I want to cry because it's so scary. And I'm like, I'm going to go talk to him. I've been with my husband since I was 24, forever. Why am I scared? He's a gentle, kind man. But it's a new behavior. So we're scared. We do it anyway. So I go in and I'm like, hey, you said this and it really hurt my feelings. Guess what? Oh my God, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Let me give you a hug. I'm so sorry. I will not do that again. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I just saved us both like 3 days of passive aggressive silence, hoping that he would say something to me. And I only bring that up because I think sometimes we think, oh, difficult conversations are going to look and feel really aggressive and like, oh, I'm burning it down. No, that was a difficult conversation for me.
Yeah.
And it fixed it, not fixed things, but it fixed that one problem, and it allowed me to feel more connected. And guess what? Then I feel more soothed. And then I'm a better, if I had kids, I'd be a better mother. I'm a better wife. I'm a better friend. I'm a better therapist, all the things, because I'm not dysregulated.
Yeah. And you're not feeding your agency to somebody who actually had no idea what was happening. I mean, that's such a great example. Number one, because of the way it ended, but also because of the exercise in which you discovered like he actually had zero idea what was
Yes.
happening. And so then, yeah, now it becomes very clear that we're doing that to ourselves. And why would we do that to ourselves? Why are we going to punish ourselves for something that is easily taken care of and gotten over? And you did your brain a solid by reinforcing this new behavior pattern as well. So that is a really nice, it's tidier maybe than all of life, but it is a really good example.
But we often think it's going to be this big thing, right? And that it's going to cause all of this stuff to happen. But most of the time, again, there are certain scenarios which could definitely be bigger,
Mm-hmm.
but in most of the cases there are
Mm-hmm.
things like this, and
Yeah.
they're kind of small. It's kind of what my book that's coming out this year, Why Do I Keep Doing This, is centered around, because I do things over and over, and then even though I'm a therapist, I like surprised that I get the same bad result.
You and everybody else. Tell us, Katie, how do people learn more about you and your book, and give us the title again, please.
Yes, of course. So you can find me on social media, Katie Morton, Katimorton. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the places. I also have a podcast called Ask Katie Anything, where I answer questions from my audience, and I also interview other specialists and people that are just interesting to me. And my new book, Why Do I Keep Doing This, comes out December 9th, and you can find it wherever books are sold. I always encourage people, go to your local library or go to your local bookstore. We want to support our small businesses, but you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, whatever.
Fantastic. Katie, thank you for this conversation. This was delightful.
Yes, thanks for having me. I feel like we could talk for like 5 more hours.
I agree. Thanks again.